A sailor lifts the ladle from the water barrel and the liquid comes up green. Slimy, stinking like rot. This is what happens to water stored in wooden barrels on a ship. It goes bad. Algae blooms in the warm, still liquid. Bacteria multiply. Within weeks, the water is foul, thick, borderline poisonous. But it's all they have, and seawater will kill them faster. So they mix it with rum. Diluted rum. That's grog, the disgusting pirate and sailor drink made from rotten barrel water cut with alcohol. The rum doesn't purify the water. It masks the taste of decay just enough to choke it down. The alcohol kills some bacteria, not all. Mostly it makes you willing to drink liquid that would otherwise make you vomit. This is how pirates survived, by drinking rotten diluted rum. Not because it was safe, because dying slowly from contaminated water beat dying fast from thirst. 3 weeks out from port, the ship is still provisioned. The water barrels are half full, but nobody's lining up to drink from them anymore. The water has turned. Algae blooms on the surface, where sunlight leaks through cracks in the barrel staves. The liquid inside has gone from clear to cloudy to something with texture, slick, almost oily, coating the ladle when you dip it. The smell hits you first. Organic. Rotten. Like pond water that's been sitting in the sun too long. And the taste is worse. Bitter, thick, with an aftertaste that lingers in your mouth and makes you want to spit. Pirates face the same problem as every other sailor. Water barrels loaded at the last port seemed fine then. Fresh, clear, drinkable. But that was 3 weeks ago, and 3 weeks in a sealed wooden barrel sitting in the tropical heat changes everything. The water doesn't just go stale, it transforms into something alive, growing, festering in the dark hold of the ship. You can see it when you pull the lid off. A greenish film floating on top. Sometimes bubbles where gases from bacterial activity escape to the surface. Pour it into a cup, and it's cloudy, thick enough that you can almost see particles suspended in the liquid. Some sailors describe it as looking like someone stirred dirt into the water. Others say it looks like the water is sick, infected, dying the same way meat does when it rots. But this is all they have. Seawater will kill you. The salt concentration is so high that drinking it pulls water from your body faster than it supplies it. Your kidneys work overtime, trying to flush the excess salt, stealing moisture from your tissues until you're more dehydrated than when you started. You'll die of thirst, faster drinking seawater than drinking nothing at all. So the crew drinks the barrel water. The rotten, slimy, algae-bloomed barrel water that smells like decay and tastes like poison. Because dying slowly from whatever's growing in there beats dying fast from dehydration. Because there's no other option. Because the ship is still weeks from the next port and the barrels aren't getting any fresher. This was the problem every ship faced. Navy vessels, merchant ships, pirate crews. Fresh water doesn't stay fresh. Not in wooden barrels, not in the heat, not over weeks and months at sea. The water goes bad and you drink it anyway, or you die. Water stored in wooden barrels becomes stagnant within weeks. There's no circulation, no flow, just standing liquid in a sealed container, sitting in the warm hold of a ship crossing tropical waters where temperatures hit 90 degrees. Algae spores, carried in the air or already present in the barrel wood, bloom when conditions are right. Sunlight penetrating through gaps in the barrel, warmth, still water. The algae spreads across the surface, turning the water green and coating everything with slime. Bacteria multiply in the stagnant environment, feeding on organic material leached from the wood itself. Tannins from the oak, residue from whatever the barrel held before, wine, salted meat, God knows what, microscopic particles of rot. The wood doesn't help. Barrels were reused constantly. A barrel that held salted pork gets emptied, rinsed with seawater, and refilled with drinking water. Whatever's soaked into that wood, Salt, fat, bacteria leaches back out into the fresh water. The liquid takes on flavors, colors, textures that shouldn't exist in something you're supposed to drink. Sailors had words for this. Some called it slimy water because of how it felt coating your throat. Others described it as water that had gone off, like meat that started to spoil but hasn't fully rotted yet. A few accounts mention water so thick with growth that it had to be strained through cloth before drinking, just to remove the visible chunks. By the time a voyage reached the Caribbean or crossed the Atlantic, journeys lasting weeks or months, the water was borderline undrinkable. But crews had no choice. You drink what you have, or you die of thirst, watching an ocean you can't touch. When the British Navy captured Jamaica in 1655, rum became cheap and plentiful. The island produced it in massive quantities from sugarcane, and suddenly the Royal Navy had access to barrels of high-proof spirits that didn't spoil, didn't take up much space, and cost a fraction of what beer or wine did. Ships started issuing rum rations, half a pint per man, twice a day, morning and afternoon. Straight rum. Undiluted. Barrel-strength stuff that could hit 80 to 100 proof, strong enough that you could allegedly use it to test if gunpowder was still good. Pour rum on powder, light it. If it ignites, the rum hasn't been watered down, hence Navy strength. Rum had advantages beyond not rotting. It provided calories in a compact form. It gave sailors something to look forward to in a job that was brutal, monotonous, and frequently fatal. And, crucially, mixing it with foul water made the water tolerable. The alcohol masked the taste of rot. The burn of the rum overpowered the slimy texture and rancid smell. Suddenly, water that would make you gag going down became something you could force yourself to swallow. But the rum ration created a new problem. Sailors getting a full pint of undiluted, high-proof rum every day became drunk. Not pleasantly buzzed, drunk. Fights broke out. Orders were ignored. Men stumbled through rigging work that required steady hands and clear heads. Falls from the masts. Accidents with cannon. Injuries that could have been avoided if everyone wasn't half in the bag by noon. And then there was hoarding. Sailors would save their rations, trading them for favours or goods, or stockpiling them for a proper binge. Some men would go days without drinking their tot, then consume 4 days' worth at once, and become violently, dangerously drunk. Discipline collapsed. Officers spent more time dealing with drunk sailors than running the ship. Something had to change. In 1740, British Admiral Edward Vernon commanded a fleet in the Caribbean. He was a respected officer, known for actually caring about his sailors' welfare, a rarity in an era when crews were treated as expendable. But he had a problem. His men were drunk too often, and it was affecting operations. Vernon had a nickname, Old Grog. He wore a boat cloak made of grogram, a coarse fabric woven from silk, mohair, and wool that repelled water. The cloak was distinctive, and the nickname stuck. On August 21st, 1740, Vernon issued Captain's Order number 349. From this point forward, all rum rations must be diluted with water. The ratio, 4 parts water to 1 part rum. The mixing had to happen on deck, in front of the lieutenant of the watch, in an open barrel called a scuttled butt. No exceptions. No hoarding. You drank your ration when it was issued, or you didn't get it at all. The dilution solved multiple problems. First, watered rum spoiled within hours. You couldn't save it up for later, because by later it would be undrinkable. Second, the lower alcohol content, probably around 10–15% in the final mixture, meant men could drink their ration without getting dangerously drunk. They'd catch a buzz, sure, but they could still climb rigging and handle weapons. The order also suggested that sailors who were good husbandmen who saved their food rations and money, could purchase sugar and lime to add to their grog, making it more palatable. Most sailors couldn't afford extras. They got rum and water, mixed in front of an officer, drunk on the spot. The sailors hated it. Vernon had just watered down their one good thing about life at sea. They named the mixture grog, after old Grog himself, a mocking tribute to the admiral who'd stolen their straight rum. The name stuck. Within years, every ship in the Royal Navy was issuing grog. By 1756, it was official regulations. Vernon's order became naval policy for the next 230 years. Here's the thing about grog. It didn't purify the water. Not really. Alcohol does kill bacteria. It works as an antiseptic by denaturing proteins in microbial cells, essentially ripping apart the cell's machinery until it stops functioning. Pour pure alcohol on a wound and you'll kill surface bacteria. Use it to sterilize medical instruments and it works. This is real chemistry, proven and effective. But grog wasn't pure alcohol. It was 4 parts rotten water to 1 part rum. The final mixture had maybe 10 to 15% alcohol by volume, depending on the strength of the rum. Medical-grade sterilization requires alcohol concentrations closer to 60 to 70%. Anything less, and you're only killing some of the bacteria, not all of it, not even most of it. So what did the rum in grog actually do? It masked the taste. The burn of alcohol and whatever flavor the rum brought, caramel, molasses, wood from the barrel, overpowered the taste of algae and rot. The rum's smell covered the stench of stagnant water. And psychologically, if it tasted like rum, sailors could convince themselves they weren't drinking swamp water from a barrel that smelled like death. The alcohol also slowed further bacterial growth. A little. Not much. Bacteria can survive in low alcohol environments just fine. Beer and wine have similar alcohol contents, and they still go bad eventually. But slowing the rot by even a day or two mattered on a long voyage. Grog didn't make the water safe. It made poisonous water survivable. Every gulp still carried bacteria, algae spores, whatever had been growing in those barrels for weeks. Sailors drinking grog were ingesting contaminated water. But the contaminated water mixed with rum went down easier than contaminated water straight. And when the choice is between choking down foul water or dying of thirst, you choke it down. Pirates didn't officially drink grog. Grog was a Royal Navy term, Royal Navy practice invented by a Royal Navy admiral. And pirates were deserters from that navy, enemies of it, or men who'd never served and had no intention of starting. So they drank something else, bumbo. Bumbo was functionally identical. Rum mixed with water, sweetened with sugar when available, sometimes spiced with nutmeg or cinnamon. Same principle, dilute the rum to make supplies last longer. Mix it with contaminated barrel water to make the water drinkable. Pirates were often former sailors, men who'd served in the Royal Navy or on merchant vessels before turning to piracy. They knew the trick. They just refused to use Navy terminology. The recipe varied. Some versions had more sugar, making it sweeter and slightly more palatable. Others added spices. Nutmeg was popular in the Caribbean, cheap and plentiful. A few accounts mention pirates mixing in lime juice, though whether that was for scurvy prevention or just taste is unclear. Nobody in the 1700s understood that vitamin C prevented scurvy. They just knew citrus seemed to help, so they threw it in when they had it. Bumbo served the same purpose as grog. It made rotten water tolerable. It kept crews from getting dangerously drunk on undiluted rum. And it stretched the rum supply, which mattered when you couldn't exactly pull into port and buy more without risking arrest. The name probably came from bombard, a type of leather drinking vessel, or possibly from the word bumbo in West African languages, meaning a drink or beverage. Etymology is messy. What's clear is that pirates drank it, Sailors drank it, and everyone pretended their version was different, even though it was the same disgusting compromise. Ships left port with water barrels full of fresh water and rum barrels full of spirits. A few weeks later, the water had turned. Algae floating on top. Smell like rot. Texture like something between water and slime. And the crew drank it anyway, mixed with rum twice a day. The routine was fixed. Morning ration between 10 and noon. Afternoon ration between 4 and 6. In the Royal Navy, a bosun's mate would pipe up spirits, the call for rum distribution. Men lined up at the scuttled butt where an officer oversaw the mixing. 4 parts rotten water, 1 part rum, stirred together and ladled into cups. You drank it there, in front of witnesses, to prove you weren't hoarding. It didn't taste good. Even with the rum, even with sugar and lime if you could afford them, you were still drinking water that had been sitting in a wooden barrel for weeks, growing things, developing flavors that shouldn't exist in a liquid meant for human consumption. But you drank it. Because the alternative was dehydration, and dehydration killed faster than whatever bacteria were swimming in that cup. The health consequences weren't zero. Sailors drinking contaminated water, even rum-laced contaminated water, got sick. Dysentery was common. Typhoid. Cholera in the worst cases. The alcohol killed some bacteria, not all. Men died from waterborne diseases, even with grog rations, but fewer died than would have died refusing to drink at all. Grog was a compromise, not a good one, not a healthy one, but a functional one. It kept crews hydrated enough to work. It kept sailors from getting dangerously drunk. It made water that was borderline poisonous just tolerable enough to swallow. And for 230 years, from 1740 until 1970, the Royal Navy kept issuing it. Not because it was good, because nothing better existed. The Royal Navy abolished the rum ration on July 31st, 1970. A day sailors mourned as Black Tot Day. They held mock funerals, wore black armbands, poured final tots overboard, like they were burying a friend. After more than 2 centuries, grog was done. Not because anyone suddenly realized it was unhealthy. They'd known that for a long time. Because ships had better water storage, refrigeration, modern purification methods. Because operating complex machinery while even slightly drunk had become too dangerous. Because the world had moved on. But for the sailors and pirates who drank grog for those 2 centuries, it was never about health. It was about survival. Water stored in barrels rots. Seawater kills. And rum was the only thing strong enough to make the difference between undrinkable and barely tolerable. They called it grog. They called it bumbo. They called it whatever. Let them pretend they weren't drinking pond water from a barrel that smelled like death. And they drank it anyway. Twice a day. Every day. For months. Because the ocean doesn't care what you call your compromise. It just keeps offering you the same deal. Drink the rot or die of thirst.